What's going on YouTube? Today we got exposing ESPN's lies about Michael Jordan, man. You know, the last reaction will be at the end of the video. Without any further introduction, let's get into it.
Welcome back to the
Turn
channel.
it up, my fault,
and today I'm back with a video this time once again. We're looking at ESPN and some of their top tier analysts and debunk their biggest takes. And in today's video, we're looking at the GOAT debate involving LeBron James, Kareem, as well as Michael Jordan. And it is pretty simple for this video. We're looking at two former NBA players, debunk their takes, dissect their arguments, and use facts to beat them at their own game. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So the first take we have up comes from one of the best point guards of all time, that being Isaiah Thomas. And as you guys know Isaiah, he's always objective, always insightful, and always fair to one Michael Jordan. And in this clip from ESPN, Isaiah makes his case about LeBron James, and at the end of the day, be the GOAT and the best player in NBA history.
And when I say he's the GOAT, here's what I mean, right? When you talk about he and Kareem in terms of their 20-year dominance over a sport, and then both of them being able to touch every single aspect of the statistical categories and be leaders in that category. You can't be considered the GOAT and you don't lead in no statistical category.
So stopping the clip right there, Isaiah Thomas, he makes some pretty good points. LeBron James objectively has great longevity, and at age 37 has been playing phenomenally. Now where he loses me,
each his own.
At the end of that clip, he clearly says you have to be the all-time leader in some category to be the quote-unquote greatest player of all time. That criteria right there, it's very odd, very specific, and for Isaiah, he's never used that before. And to point out how bad that criteria is and how misleading it can be, let's do a quick comparison of two players who are Hall of Fame point guards. On your left, you have one player when it comes to total stats, leads in points, assists, steals, field goals made, as well as three-pointers made. On your right, that point guard only leads in one category. Objectively speaking, only looking at longevity, the player on your left,
I think he was talking about though.
Better or
Nah, but I think he's talking about like just leading like the first person in NBA history to have the most of this. I think he's talking about like that, bro. I know what you're trying to make, gang, but that's not what he means. Like he means like if you're number one in that statistical category, that shows a sign of greatness, not just having more stats than somebody.
Overall player. Now doing the reveal, that player is John Stockton compared to Magic. Now for 1 second, who is the better player, Magic or Stockton? It's pretty obvious Magic. He's the best point guard.
I heard a lot of old heads say Stockton was the best point guard in the
NBA's all-time leader in assists, as well as
NBA history before, but
Magic Johnson.
It's each his own, bro.
Once again, for Isaiah's criteria, Magic Johnson wouldn't be the point guard.
John Stockton is the leader.
One thing to point out very quickly, John Stockton is the NBA's all-time leader in assists, as well as steals. Magic Johnson is not. Once again, for Isaiah's criteria, Magic Johnson wouldn't be the GOAT point guard, it would be John Stockton. And doing one more player comparison to show why longevity can be flawed, let's look at two Hall of Fame power forwards and compare the longevity. On your left, one player leads in points, assists, steals, field goals made, as well as free throws made. On your right, that power forward only leads in one category. Revealing these two players, you have Karl Malone as well as Tim Duncan. Once again, looking at both these players, only at longevity, Karl Malone is better than Tim Duncan.
Oh, and no, I ain't watched Karl or Tim yet. So
far and away has the most points ever scored. Once again, using Isaiah's logic, Karl Malone is better than Tim Duncan, the greatest power forward in NBA history.
Nah, I agree. You definitely shouldn't just use that logic. Of course not. It's not one thing you could use to determine the GOAT. No, you got to use a whole bunch of things
to ever do it. Because from a winning percentage standpoint, from a statistical standpoint, from an impact on the game standpoint, any criteria of measurement that you want to use, these two are in the top 5 in almost every single category.
So stopping the clip right there, Isaiah Thomas, his main point is that LeBron James and Kareem, in every category, they're basically top 5. And once again, what he loves is total stats as well as longevity. Looking at LeBron right now, he's 3rd in points, 7th in assists, 11th in steals, 45th in boards, and 100th in blocks. Undoubtedly, a great all-time resume. But for those categories, he's top 5 in only one. For comparison's sake, let's look at Michael Jordan and his all-time ranks. Jordan is 3rd in steals, 5th in points, 47th in assists, 125th in blocks, and 143rd in rebounds. But unlike LeBron James, Michael Jordan is top 5 in 2 all-time categories. Am I saying Jordan has better longevity? Definitely not. But looking at both those players, LeBron James only top 5 in one category compared to Jordan, who's top 5 in 2, which once again shows that label being top 5, it's no real criteria, it's subjective, and it makes no real sense in the overall GOAT debate. Now once again, talking about longevity, in my personal view, it's not how you gauge how good a player was at the best in their NBA careers. What I do, I look at their peak as well as their overall prime. And for Michael Jordan, I would say that's from 86 to 93. Looking at his playoff stats, they're simply phenomenal. Averaging 34.9 points per game, 6.7 boards, 6.6 assists, 2.3 steals, 1.0 blocks, on impressive 50, 36, and 84 splits. Looking at that right there, that's how you gauge how good a player was at their best. Not longevity or total stats. And I won't go too in depth with it, but looking at Jordan's accolades, he won 3 championships, 3 MVPs, 3 Finals MVPs, is 7-time scoring champion, 6-time All-Defensive, and 3-time steals leader. And when it came to total stat playoff ranks as an all-around player, he was 1st in points, 1st in steals, 4th in assists, 9th in blocks, and 10th in rebounds.
Okay, I will ask you this question. Do you have LeBron over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Not until he passes him in the scoring title, but as an all-around player, yes. And by the time that LeBron James is finished, see, we're measuring LeBron James now, and he's still in his basketball playing career. But we can safely say that by the time he's done playing, he may have passed Kareem. When he passes Kareem in scoring, you have to as the
he is.
So stopping the clip right there, once again Isaiah Thomas is obsessed with total stats as well as longevity. And once again, for the overall GOAT argument, there's many facets involved.
That's a fact.
Your peak, at your prime, your accolades, your championships, your hardware, all that takes into account, not just longevity. Because I will say LeBron James has the best longevity in NBA history. And him passing Kareem in scoring, it will be amazing and an all-time great feat. But when it comes to the overall GOAT debate, he still has work to do when it comes to catching Michael Jordan. And for a quick comparison, let's use LeBron's
talking some facts right now,
being Dwayne Wade. In D-Wade's career, he's a 1-time Finals MVP, a 1-time scoring champ, 3-time All-Defensive, and a 3-time NBA champion. In my view, D-Wade, at worst, is top 25 all-time and a surefire Hall of Famer. Now right here, you have the gap in accolades and accomplishments between Jordan and LeBron James. 1 MVP, 1 Defensive Player of the Year, 2 Finals MVPs, 3 All-Defensive teams, 2 championships, and 9 scoring titles. That right there is the gap between Jordan and LeBron James.
It's cool though, man. It's cool, man.
Now for the coffin and the final bullet point.
It's cool though, man.
Once again, let's use Dwayne Wade.
My son's still hooping out here. You saying? Gucci, man. He's still hooping.
Looking at these two players, Dwayne Wade has more points, more assists, more steals, as well as more blocks.
That's a fact.
But once again, at the end of the day, he was the better and overall greater player. That would obviously be Larry Bird, even despite his poor longevity when compared to D. Wade. Now, looking past Isaiah Thomas, next up, we have Kendrick Perkins, one of the smartest, most intelligent NBA minds.
Yes, I agree, Molly. And guess what? I have another old school legend that played in the 80s and 90s that also agree. That sent me a text while me and Mr. Stephen A were going at it, and I'm going to read it to you. Jordan won in the 90s, not in the 80s.
Really quick interjection. That point right there makes absolutely no sense, especially when juxtaposed to LeBron James. Yes, Jordan in the 80s, he didn't win a championship, and it wasn't until 91 that he got his first ring. But that exact same argument he made against LeBron James, who won 0 championships in the 2000s and didn't win until 2012.
It's a fact.
Also, when looking at Jordan, it's undeniable.
My boy was in the finals, though. He's almost there. He almost there. Nah, I'm not. He got swept, right? He got swept. And then he got gentleman sweep after.
Dominique, Ewing, Mutombo, even Hardaway, all have 0 championships because of Michael Jordan.
LeBron played against better athletes and more skilled players. Oakley and Mason would not be in today's NBA.
So stopping the clip right there, I absolutely love this argument, saying that Jordan in his era, the players weren't as good, they weren't as skilled, and athletically, they simply weren't up to par. But just looking at the players in Jordan's era, there were definitely some freak athletes. You had Shaq, Chris Webber, Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway, Dominique, Barkley, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, David Robinson, Karl Malone, Clyde Drexler, Kevin Johnson. I mean, you can look at endless NBA superstars from the 90s who are great athletically. What I would argue is the average NBA player, the guy off the bench, is more athletic compared to the 1990s. But overall, looking at the superstars, there's very little, if any, gap in athletic ability. And in regards to the more skilled players argument, you can definitely make that case, but the one thing I always reference is a clip from Kobe back in the 2010 finals. His overall point back then, that him as a player, he was blessed to look back on other eras. He could reference the 90s, the 80s, as well as the 70s. Players 20 years before Kobe didn't have that knowledge, that training, but they laid the foundation for what he would be as an overall player. And even 40 years later, he watched Oscar, Jerry West, he watched Bill Russell. He was a student of the game and watched all their film to build his own game in his era.
All the rule changes were made because Jordan was crying. Bird, Magic, Kareem, and myself won when it was physical. Jordan did not.
As you can tell, Perkins, he's looking at his phone and looking at text from Isaiah Thomas, who he's reciting. The one thing I find pretty funny is that Jordan's Bulls, they won in 91, and the Pistons won in 90. The NBA in a 12-month period didn't have some big drastic changes that completely changed the era in that short amount of time.
Maybe there wasn't rule change or something, but come on, man. It's a year difference, same shit.
The overall rules. As in 01, they added the 3-second rule, and in 04, eliminated hand checking.
I mean, I did hear a lot about the Jordan rules. So I ain't gonna lie, I heard a lot about the Jordan rules. You know what I'm saying? But
he was traded to New York.
That's neither here nor there, bro. This is an entertainment business, you know. Need our players to strive.
Jordan was guarded by a 6'3" Joe Dumars and a 6'2" Hornacek, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Now, once again, for NBA fans, we're all taught respect all eras. But of course, Perkins in that clip tries to downplay Jordan's competition and the players that guarded him. Now, of course, if you know NBA history and Jordan's eras, the defense was great.
I mean, one of the people from his own era, that's what he recited Isaiah Thomas. It was actually someone from that era that downplayed the era, but
Alvin Robertson, Derek Harper, Sidney Moncrief, The Glove, Mookie Blaylock, even Nate McMillan. In addition to that, the 90s were stacked at the center position in the big man spot. When you went in the paint, it was loaded, and there were no easy buckets. You had Mutombo, Mourning, Mark Eaton, Buck Williams, Hakeem, David Robinson, countless centers who were athletic and great defensive players.
When it comes to top 25 greatest players of all time, LeBron James played against more than Michael Jordan. He played a lot. He played against guys like Kobe. Talent-wise, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki. Like, the list goes on, Stephen A.
So that is Perkins' last overall point, which once again makes 0 sense. As in Jordan's career, he beat more 60-win teams, more 55-win teams, as well as more 50-win teams. And I would argue his eras had more players who were top 25 all time. You had Magic, Bird, Kareem, McHale, Isaiah, Barkley, Malone, Shaq, Hakeem, even David Robinson. You could even say Clyde Drexler, John Stockton, maybe Gary Payton. I mean, at the worst, they're top 50, but once again, they're some all-time great players. And funny enough, Perkins in that clip, he references Kobe, Dirk, Tim Duncan, as well as Kevin Garnett. When it comes to LeBron's overall record in the playoffs versus those players, he's 4-5, below 500. He never played Kobe, he lost to Dirk once, lost to Duncan twice, and Garnett also twice. And once again in LeBron's era, he stopped very few if any players from winning championships. Giannis got a ring, Kawhi has rings, KD has rings, Steph has rings, Duncan got rings, Wade got rings,
bro, this...
Dirk got a ring,
Come on,
Kobe
Uncut.
won,
That's a fact, but come on.
won. I mean, looking at LeBron's career and his overall era,
You know, Mike was ahead of his time, man.
And they got theirs on his watch. So that right there is the end of the video. That was the final conclusion to exposing ESPN and their bad Michael Jordan and GOAT debate takes. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, that's the end of this one, y'all. Yeah, man. Let me know how y'all feel about this. I agree with mostly. Some stuff I disagree. Can't even pinpoint it. First video of the day. Let me rock out. Make sure you click on that last reaction though. Turn on post notifications. And I'm out of here.